Mr. Cyril Stober.
Your Excellencies, Mr. Vice President, I'd just like to proceed quickly with the business of the discussion, seeing that all the recognitions have already been made. I'll start off by introducing the discussants and giving you just a brief background on them. I will introduce them in no particular order. So let me invite, for the purpose of being a discussant here today, Mufuliat Fijabi. Mufuliat Fijabi is Executive Director, Sustainable Gender Action Initiative and CEO, Capacity Impact Nigeria Limited. She is a gender and development specialist with more than 2 decades of experience in gender equality and women's empowerment, policy development and advisory leadership development, resource mobilization and communications. She was before now CEO of Nigerian Women Trust Fund, Gender Advisor, International Foundation for Electoral Systems, National Gender Expert, UNDP, Democratic Governance for Development. She can also be described as a reporter, a journalist, an editor. She holds degrees from the University of Ibadan, University of Lagos, and the University of York. Mufuliat Fijabi is our discussant here. Our next discussant is Dayo Israel. Dayo Israel is the National Youth Leader of the All Progressives Congress and member of the party's National Working Committee. He's an alumnus of Harvard Business School, Cambridge George Business School, the Executive Development Program of the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania, and the London Metropolitan University. He was named one of the 100 most influential people of African descent under 40 in 2017. Dayo has twice been recognized in 2016 and 2017 as one of the UK's brightest young leaders. He was also recognized as one of the top 25 promising Nigerian youths under 35 to serve Nigeria in 2016, and as one of Africa's top 30 most inspirational young people of 2013. That and so many other things. Dayo Israel, another discussant. Let me now introduce our third discussant, Professor Ibrahim Umara. Ibrahim Umara is a professor of international relations and strategic studies, the former head of political science, Department of Political Science in the University of Maiduguri from 2011 to 2016. Currently, he is the Dean Faculty of Social and Management Services, Borno State University, a lead researcher on many scholarly articles in both national and international journals and books. He is author of National Interest and Foreign Policy Options for Nigeria in the Central African Sub-region, and his recent research focuses are on post-conflict rehabilitation and resettlement, de-radicalization and peace-building strategies in the Lake Chad region, internally displaced persons, and challenges of relocation and social cohesion. I give you Professor Ibrahim Umara. And I am Cyril Stober. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the discussants will have just 35 minutes in total to put the issues into true perspective from their angles. We'll try to keep it tight, seeing that the day is progressing and there are other matters that will come up. Actualizing the vision of renewed hope for socio-economic development through effective leadership. That's what they'll be discussing. As a simple introduction to this, hope is easily described as a feeling of expectation and a desire for a particular thing to happen. So when we talk of renewed hope, means a renewed feeling of expectation. And that in itself presupposes that at some point in time, there was a waning in hope. And so we have renewed hope. Perhaps the discussants will set the tone for this discussion by their opening comments, giving us their perspective of this matter, which was dealt so eminently by Dr. Guke Adeguri, which is actualizing the vision of renewed hope for socio-economic development through effective leadership. Mufuliyat Fijabi.
Thank you very much. I would like to stand on all the already established protocol. And my starting point, in order not to take much of our time, will be to look at renewed hope as one that is tied with expectations. But I would like to emphasize that there cannot be a renewed hope without a sustained confidence process, which means expectations don't come out of vacuums. There is need for improved confidence in the entity called Nigeria, both on the part of the government and on the part of the people. And the renewed confidence is one that will bring about that successful story around the renewed hope. Nigeria is a country, as has been adequately presented by our lead presenter, that is full of bounties. But over the years, we've been lamenting about where we want to be and what we don't have. But now is the time for us to tie the renewal of hope to that of confidence and trust that can bring about those needs that we so much aspire to have. And I must say that as a country, building it and making it stronger is not just the responsibility of government, but the responsibility of all. However, it is important that since all our trust is tied in the mutual relationship, that we're all accountable to ourselves, both as government and as the people of Nigeria. And in doing this, I would like to, for example, say, I attended University of Ibadan, and I remember very well in those days that they used to tell us that during our own time, we used to eat in these cafeterias, we get our meal tickets, and we used to ask, so what happened? Where are the meal tickets? How come those of us that were there as at 1995 are no longer getting it? And they keep explaining that we're not asking for our right. But unfortunately today also, we have a lot of explanations for our own children. And we remember back in those days that the same questions that we're asking our own lecturers then, our children are asking us now. And one critical point that came out of the lead presenter's paper is the fact that we are growing every day and we have not successfully manage our population critically in terms of being responsive to infrastructural needs. And I must say that even though no government sets out to fail, there is need for an accountable process that can make things work. Otherwise, for example, I want to give a very quick one. I want to be practical so that we can all be on a page that can lead us to a better future. 8 years ago, when President Muhammadu Buhari was in government, along Sunnyvale Road, you find that some contractors were working there, and immediately it's like 2 months, 3 months to the government's commencement of its own administration, it stopped. I was shocked to find that when the Honorable Minister Nyesom Wike, was about to come into FCT, and the first day he landed, the contractors started working again. So what happened? What happened? This is the question some of us don't have answers to, which means that there's something going on that we don't understand. Why is the road not being constructed? Why is there not an accountable process? Truly, we have resources, but we need to manage it successfully well and be accountable to ourselves. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Well, the Tinubu administration says it will step away from the past and do things in a different manner. And so that's from the perspective I want Dayo to look at this topic, actualizing the vision through effective leadership. Dayo has been a leader at various levels as a youth. So we have a huge youth population. How do we incorporate that into the leadership we're looking at here?
Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, Your Excellency, all the excellencies here present, the SGF, the Chief of Staff, the Head of Service, Ministers, Mr. Speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. First, I want to say a big thank you for the opportunity to represent my generation at this August gathering as we celebrate Nigeria's birthday this weekend. Dr. Agdegoroye gave a fantastic speech about public sector effectiveness and public sector reform. But one of the quotes that I love about leadership is not just that everything rises and falls on leadership, but also the point that when purpose for something is not known, abuse is inevitable. When you don't understand the reason why you're here, or the purpose of the agenda, or what you're here to achieve, it's what you realize at the end is that success is very limited. And why do I say that? First, we talk about renewed hope. What does that stand for the Nigerian people and for the Nigerian youth? What is the purpose of renewed hope? Renewed hope talks about the fact that first there must have been a hope that did not manifest. That's why you're renewing it. Because if the hope had manifested, you would have no purpose to need a renewal. So the scripture says, hope defers, make the heart sick. The real truth is that the heart of Nigerians are sick. Nigerians have become sick out of corruption, out of police brutality being faced by young people, out of economic inequality, out of lack of gender parity, and a lot of issues, in particular for my generation. Our generation have been sick because of lack of hope for employment, for funding for our startups, for funding and grants for our SMEs, and many issues that affect daily Nigerians that has led to the increase of the Japa syndrome. Everybody wants to jump out of Nigeria because we are hope sick. And that's why President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has come and said, I've seen the cry of my people like a Moses. And said, I've heard their cries, I've heard their yearning. We've got to renew the hope of Nigerians to believe in this nation again and to trust the system. And so when we're talking about public sector effectiveness, one thing that must be at the priority and the heart of every public sector official, either career civil servants or appointed ministers, is to understand the basis for Bola Tinubu coming at this time and such a time as this. The priority is how do we get the Nigerians walking on the street of Kaduna, on the street of Jimbam in Yobe State, or in Buruku in Benue State? How do we ensure that they find a hope and trust and joy in being in Nigeria?
a Nigerian, how they have pride in carrying their passport and that they can go to bed without getting hungry. Because if you don't understand that the role of the public sector and the civil service is not just because we want to create jobs. Because many times when government looks at the fact that there's unemployment, we come and say we want to recruit 5,000 teachers. We want to recruit 5,000 laborers. We create agencies to create employment. But that is not the purpose of the public sector. The public sector is meant to be able to provide economic independence and prosperity to the Nigerian people. It is also to be able to ensure that our young people, the future of our nation, grow up in a country that they are proud of and that meets their needs and yearning to become successful and aspirational. And so, as we begin to discuss the role of leadership in renewed hope, we must prioritize and be cognizant of the fact that Bola Tinubu has come now for one reason: to ensure that every disappointment the Nigerian people have experienced becomes a thing of the past, and that we can now build, listen to this please, strong institutions and not strong people. Ajay was talking, for example, about what happened. You had a system in Abuja. A minister came in. The president came in. Everybody was scared that, oh, Buhari was going to come as a military man to change a lot of things. And suddenly, they started going back to side. They started working. After maybe 2 or 3 years, they got relaxed in the system. It was more of the experience of strong individuals, either in ministers or in permanent secretaries or in directors. And then when they heard that wicked they come way, so wicked they come way, you know go green, you go green. Suddenly they go back to sight because they believe in strong wicked. But we must move into not just strong Buhari or strong wicked, to a strong institution, a strong Ministry of FCT, and a strong Federal Republic of Nigeria.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I guess we forgot to add as part of Dayo's resume the singing voice as well. But Prof, the lead speaker talked about capacity, not just knowing what to do, but having the capacity to do those things. And so do you see this topic encapsulating the production of that necessary resource with the capacity to actualize hope? So are we seeing a renewed hope in our education?
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President, the Chief of Staff to the President, honorable ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I feel highly honored to be with you today to celebrate our 63rd independence anniversary. Capacity is what is expected of when we are marshalling the process of achieving an anticipated outcome. And the realization of hope as envisaged from the subject matter of discussion is on ability to marshal human and material resources in order to deliver, to attain. Now, the capacity now lies on two-pronged things. One, within the context of vision that is already attained in relation to delegative responsibility for every individual to act within the confine of whatever term of reference that we are given. And then two, to convey in clear terms a sort of communication to each individual to know and then to act and then to perform in realizing the particular objective that were already envisaged, that the two will conjoin to create two again, within which those that are working on behalf of the leader really know that their leaders are behind based on whatever tools that are necessary for them to act, and then two, their inclusion in the processes of attainment by apportioning responsibilities are the capacities that every nation is aspiring to identify. In relation to education, is one of the fabrics that we are talking about. And then there are changes, and we have to understand, based on the presentations, Sometimes we tend to compare Nigeria with other nations without taking into cognizance the indices of comparison. For those people that have gone beyond, they were within the context of what we call strategic invasion corridor of the rivalry between the then East and West, particularly Indonesia, Malaysia, and Asian tigers. They were so competitive between the United States of America and then the former Soviet. But for us in Africa, we were left on our own, so there are no serious investments that had brewed into the developmental aspect of our nation. So the educational system have to be in line for us to conscientize and then for us to take up. But for the education to take a toll, remember the new rates of payments, particularly the tuition fee, registration fee of the universities, the secondary schools and the primary schools are all things that have to be considered, because without proper primary school, you don't have adequate secondary school, because whatever that the secondary school produces, that is what the universities and the tertiary institutions will observe. If they are not properly trained, then there is where we get the problem. And then again on the presentation of the public sector's, public service sector, particularly of the labor union, Nigeria is a plural country. We are a federal setup. We just don't have to assume what is existing in the East should exist in the South or in the West. It doesn't work this way. We are a federal entity. We have our uniqueness. We have our peculiarities. We are talking about education. What are we talking about? People that have not yet have access to even their local communities. We are talking about galvanization of Nigeria to have a sort of renewed hope. Which hope when people don't even have access to their farmland? We are talking about food security, where people that are engaged in agricultural production are kidnapped, abducted, and carried away. And then the galvanization of the political leadership by renewing the hope for Nigerians is to ensure that the security service sector is beefed up for them to do their job, to secure the environment, as basic prerequisite of every government is to protect the life and properties. In northern Nigeria, in northeastern Nigeria, things are becoming somehow improving now, particularly in Borno and Yobe State. The security situation is improving, but yet in terms of actual, absence of fear of the unknown is still somehow in resonaissance. And for the southwest, for the north central and for the northwest, I think there are certain elements, but the security is doing its best. But for the education, we have to give hope to the young people, the corpus, and then the undergraduates to be in their educational institution without fear of being abducted or kidnapped. Thank you very much.